Hey, True Believers, Englentine here with a bit of an article that came out a few days ago anyway. And it really sounds like that one where Phil Boyle from Coliseum of Comics just kind of sent in a, hey, listen, guys, this is what's up with the industry. This is my suggestions on how to fix it, and this is what I'm going to do. So it's very much the same. And that sparked off an article from Cosmic News, which said Disney cancels Marvel Comics. So I figured, let's take a look at the original. It's called Brian Hibbs' State of the Industry speech at Comics Pro. It's a guest column, much like the Phil Boyle. I think it was also on ICV2. Anyway, once again, the Cosmic News one was based on this, and it was speculative. So I figured, okay, let's go through this, have a little comment on it. Let's find out what it's all about. Now, there's a lot to this, so I might not put my little avatar in. It might just be me talking, so bear with me. So anyway, Brian Hibbs, a longtime comic retailer, owner of Comics Experience in San Francisco. He's a writer and occasional direct market firebrand. He gave the State of the Industry address at the Comics Pro annual meeting in Charlotte, North Carolina, and gave us permission to reprint his remarks. Here, we originally saw them on comicsprogress.com. Alrighty, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of this. The first big paragraph is just him thanking everybody for him being a speaker here. So he goes on to say, national sales are very poor. There are comics in the national top 10 or top 100, that aren't even selling 20,000 copies. A significant number of stores have closed, perhaps as many as 10% of the outlets. And as far as I know, every person in this room is working significantly harder, with many of us barely hanging on as our margins have cratered. So the remit that was given to me was to lay out some blame. Well, Brian, you may want to be careful there. We started a hashtag to do the exact same thing, and most of us are now known as Nazi racists. I am happy to do that. In fact, I'm pretty okay at it. But before I do that, I actually want to start off by saying that I believe that the direct market is one of the greatest creations in the history of intersection of art and commerce. Look, we are a self-created market of entrepreneurs, folks who wear the passion for what we do on our sleeves every waking hour. We are thousands of independent retailers and creators, and yes, publishers, who do the things that we do because we believe in what we're selling, and more, we burn to do it. Nothing delights us more than seeing the spark we had glowing in our hearts and minds and watching it ignite in the hearts and minds of others. We are a market that took the ashy embers of a medium that had been crushed by Senate hearings and cultural irrelevance, a medium that had been utterly written off as only viable for sub-literate morons, and helped fan them into a flame that is now molten core of a greater entertainment industry. For the most part, those writers and directors making the TV shows and movies, as well as the teachers and librarians spreading the word to the youngest generations, have been able to do so because of our hard-lung years in the trenches. However, now we are watching our market crumble away even as comic culture takes over the mainstream. Okay, I'm going to argue a point here. I don't think comic book culture has made it to the mainstream. I think the comic book characters have. And I do believe if you look at any argument you've ever had, like, oh no, that's wrong, that character would never do that, they always go straight to the lonely virgin living in his mother's basement stereotype. And they always argue that. And if you think about it, there's 22-year-olds now who are starting to write these characters who have never known a world in which Iron Man, or at least didn't really pay attention to the world before Iron Man the movie existed. So their introduction and their acceptance of the characters came through the movies first, and yeah, they just don't understand. So no, while the characters are very popular, yes, you cannot deny that, the culture is still underground. First and foremost, a lot of that blame for that lies with the very people in this room, and I do believe he's talking to retailers. Honestly, publishers and creators will only do what they think they can get away with. I'm going to spend a bit talking about publisher behavior in a minute, but to a person, we enable those behaviors. They can't and won't publish material unless we buy it. Every single order form we turn in is a vote for the future that we want, and a lot of us have been voting actively against our best interest for many years. This is something I've said for a long time now. I've even had conversations with some of my favorite people on YouTube who are comic shop owners, FEISTY fan and NERDROTIC channel. And it's just one thing I never really bought into. Why would you put your business or put yourself out of business to get that 1 out of 100 variant if it means you got to spend $1,000 on a book that's not going to sell? He goes on to say, I can't especially blame the publishers for trying to meet our demand. If you could get an extra 20% in sales by paying $500 to an artist and doing a plate change at the printer, why wouldn't you? But as with absolutely everything in the post-Heroes World direct market, we lack absolutely anyone willing to stand up and say, no, that's a little too far, to protect us against our worst impulses. All markets need brakes and guardrails. And that was the kind of thing that Phil Boyle was saying from Coliseum of Comics. He was saying, well, this is what I'm going to do from now on to combat what you're trying to make us. And yeah, while he was kind of being vague about who he was talking to, it was all against practices that Marvel Comics has done to squeeze that extra $1 or $5 out of the comic book shops. We have, as I see it, two major problems at the publisher level. One of content and one of the amount of product. In terms of content, while I think we're at a golden age of comics right now, well, we kind of were in the 30s and 40s, with more amazing material being published than ever before. The base level of quality of our core periodical product in the direct market, the driver of sales and success in our market, both in the superhero universe materials as well as most licensed and creator-owned titles, it is at a near historical nadir. You would think there would be a whole bunch of comic book customers that would come out and speak out about the fact that comic book quality just isn't what it used to be. I am not at all convinced that over the last 2 decades or so that even the minimum amount of effort has been put into developing editorial staff and support at largest publishers. Most editors are desultory, at best at the skill set. Instead, publishers have been emphasizing traffic management and corporate synergy as the most important skills to develop. Comics are written to fill arbitrary holes in production schedules rather than to be the best stories they can be. Creators are encouraged to write for page count of pre-scheduled collections rather than crafting each individual periodical release to be satisfying in and of itself, and only allowing the best of that material to go on to permanent book format collection. Writing for the trades is another thing I've spoken out quite a bit. And, wow, yeah, it does suck. It's just how the industry has gone. A lot of people say, well, I wait for the trades. You know, I remember when only the best stories got trade paperbacks. And they were actually something because you'd have an introduction, a little bit about the process in the back maybe. Now, why, oh why do we need the 6th iteration of Captain Marvel to be reproduced into trade paperback form? Content is of course the thing we retailers can impact the least. Make better comics has long been a battle cry, but it's out of our direct wheelhouse. Perhaps the cry should be to make better editors, but that's not in your wheelhouse either. There are also plainly entirely too many SKUs in the market. At the front of the process, how did we enter a world where they're offering us 12 different Spider-Man branded comics in a single 4-week period? When exactly did we cross the Rubicon that suggested that bi-weekly or faster production was the right way to make comics? How customers actually want to purchase those comics? Please listen, we are destroying and devaluing our blue chip stocks rather than drawing in the vast muggle audience to purchase our products. I'm up for that, seriously. I know, okay, yeah, hey, I get my Aquaman every 2 weeks. Great, wonderful. But I would rather have a quality product once a month than a half-assed product like, say, Martian Manhunter every 2 weeks. All that is a monthly comic, so that's a bad example. Anywho, I also understand that maybe it's one of those things where that's what kids are into right now. I mean, you know, they got everything in the palm of their hand, so waiting a month might be not something they're willing to do or can't do because they've got the attention span of a millennial. Publishers are treating the customers as super fans who are bottomless ATM machines, but every working retailer in this room can tell you that this doesn't match the reality of our customers. The people who want or even can afford this endless barrage of material clumping down in the pipeline is narrowing and hollowing out month after month, and is soon going to hit a number that is probably not sustainable for any of us. I still clearly remember the days when I couldn't order less than 10 copies of anything Marvel might produce. I'm even talking star comics like Planet Terry and Royal Roy. If it had the Marvel logo on it, it sold. But today, at my store, there's almost a quarter of Marvel's output from month to month. I no longer have the customer interest to even shelf a single copy. Somebody call Gail Simone and Joe Quesada. We have another racist right here in the building. This guy is touching on almost every subject that created Comicsgate. And I'm talking about the original Comicsgate that talked about comic books. This is where we were going. This is what we're talking about. They are creating content that is either so bad or so useless that it is actively hurting the comic book industry. Want a clear current example of Marvel's preposterous flood the zone strategy? War of the Realms is supposed to be their major Q2 project in 2019. But in the first month alone, they're asking us to buy into 2 issues of the series being released with no sales data, as well as 4 different tie-in miniseries. All 6 of these comics, which were built around a 6-issue storyline, will require final orders from us before we've sold a single comic to an actual reader. Is there anyone in this room thinks that this is good? That this is sustainable? That this will sell more comics to more readers? That this will sell any copies to people who aren't already on board Marvel's periodical already? Oh, by the way, I am one of those super fans. Mainly because of the channel. We do Marvel versus DC videos. Used to do the independent videos, but they just didn't get enough views to warrant the cost. But it would be me and my friends, my brothers. We would buy a whole bunch of comic books, and then we would do reviews of everything just to give you an idea of who was putting out the better comics. And we really did do reviews that were open-minded, and we want every comic book to be a 5-star. So I'm that person that they're going after. And I have to say that from the beginning, War of Realms just has not excited me at all. This, if there was something I'm glad not to spend my money on, it would be War of Realms. I am not interested at all. Not even a little bit. I say to you, we do not need plans or programs that are aimed at selling more comics to the same customers. They really can't afford and don't want any more titles to buy. Our focus as an industry should be on making our periodical releases more attractive to more new readers and to grow our base, not simply exploit the existing one. Which leads to another problem, because say War of Realms comes out and you collect, I don't know, Black Panther, just saying. And it all of a sudden comes up in the storyline. You don't want to follow it. You just want to get to the Black Panther stories. So you say, you know what? I'm going to drop it for a while. When it stops being War of Realms, then I'll pick it up again. Except you learn to live without it, and therefore you never go back to it. And that is a danger that all of these crossovers has created. By the same token, the SKU explosion has expanded out past just number of series, but also into number of covers and variants we offer on those comics. In January 2019, I counted a staggering 59% of the SKUs offered were variants and alternate covers. 59%! This is in no way a healthy state of affairs, and it exists at every level of the market, from the top at Marvel, where the aforementioned War of Realms had 17 different covers on the first issue at initial solicitation, and they've also added another 8 more at FOC after, of course, we pre-sold our sets and such. All of this on a $6 comic. A customer who actually wanted all 25 of that one single release would be asked to spend nearly $150 on a single issue of a comic. This is not tenable or rational place for us to be as buyers of non-returnable goods. Even at wholesale price of like $68, it's far too insane for us to any risk. This is predatory behavior on behalf of the largest publisher. And that is what we have been fighting all this time. Now you're a racist for saying that Marvel has bad business practices. And buying all of the variants is the same as staying with a series that you don't like anymore, but you just want to fill out your collection. Are you really buying the book, or are you buying a number? It isn't just Marvel. Of course, this rotten weakness penetrates down to the smallest publishers too. Zenescope and Dynamite, Archie, Action Lab, to name just a few, all seem utterly incapable of producing comics without 2 to 5 covers apiece, while organizations like Avatar and Boundless and American Mythology appear to have strategies utterly pinned on releasing up-priced variants of the same material for multiple months forward. None of these models are sustainable. None of them increase the number of readers by even 1. Listen to me, publishers. This behavior needs to stop. If you can't sell enough copies of your comic to fit your business goals with one single cover, then you probably shouldn't be publishing it in the first place. Too many SKUs, whether from title count or from variant expansion, are actively harmful to the market. They take time and energy and resources from the things we could be doing to sell more comics. Not just from your retailer customers, but from the distribution pipelines as well. The more individual SKUs Diamond has to touch at quantities that nationally can measure in the mere hundreds, the more likely they are to make mistakes, and the more likely we are to have overs, shorts, and damages, wasting more money and time from everyone and stressing the entire system that much more. Be clear, I'm not arguing for the abolition of variants altogether. They have a great deal of value and worth when used intelligently, strategically, and with restraint, but putting 5 covers on some mediocre comic that you're not even expecting to get over 10,000 in the national market on the main cover is a path that is leading us straight to doom. And once again, if you're the kind of customer that needs 5 copies of Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur number 15 because... why? Just ask yourself why. Why are you encouraging that kind of behavior? Let's talk about the third leg of the market. I also want to call on Diamond to step up and take seriously your job to protect and nurture the direct market. While I certainly appreciate the efforts taken to act as the bank of the direct market, it's been too many years since you ceded all of your gatekeeping power. We retailers are asking you now to do all of the stuff that you should have been doing for decades to protect us. I am calling today for the following 10-point plan. Stop mixing SKUs for things like minimum orders and chart reporting. Combined SKUs defeat critical economic Darwinism needed for a healthy marketplace and sends clearly distorting messages about how and what is selling. Each and every line item should stand on its own individually, and if there are variant covers that do not or cannot meet those paltry $2,500 wholesale orders, then it should not be allowed access to the national marketplace. There's absolutely no reason to waste everyone's time, energy, and bandwidth for individual covers that less than 200 accounts are purchasing. Publishers should handle those sales directly with those retailers without involving the national marketplace. A bit too inside baseball for me. By the same token, I call again for all sales charts to include a penetration index, a simple percentage of how many accounts are purchasing a specific SKU. SKUs that don't reach, and this is a number from a hat for talking point, approximately 1 store in 3 probably don't deserve national distribution. All meet or exceeds must go away immediately. Tying one product to another is not only immoral and creates an environment of haves and have-nots, but I also strongly believe it's against federal law. And that one I'll just leave to the lawyers. There needs to be a creation of a threshold of what the native sales of a base title must sell or be projected to sell that limits the number of variants that are allowed. I suspect the number is something like 1 for every 20,000 copies sold, but again, numbers from a hat. If you sell 20,000 or over, you can have a variant cover. 40,000 and over, you could have 2, and so on. Below those numbers, you don't deserve any, and there is no universe outside of a once-in-a-lifetime event like Action Comics 1000 where any single comic should have 10 or more covers. While I agree with the sentiment, it's personal choice, and if somebody wants to be dumb enough to go for that deal, that's up to them. If that's not enough, I also think there should only be a certain percentage of a publisher's line that should be allowed to have to be variants. Again, as from the hat number, I'd suggest a possible number like 25% of their total output. It would be nice to see mostly or only special books get the variant treatment again, but then again, DC's doing some awesome variants over there. But they're doing 1-to-1. You know, and you don't have to order one to get the other. So, I don't know. So the next few paragraphs are all about shipping and Diamond and the fact that Diamond's not very good at taking care of their customers, which are the shops. And then he goes on to say, finally, I call for the first 3 issues of any new series to be fully, no fee, no hoop, returnable from all publishers. This includes one-shots and miniseries. The only way I see to encourage publishers to be cautious and sober about what they put on the market and how they promote it is to make sure there is a financial incentive to do so, and I think the returns are the mechanism with which to do that, where we are all sharing skin in the game. I think that comics, the medium, is fine. The book scan numbers show what I take to be a very sustainable growth among kid comics, and all of those kids are growing up to be passionate, educated consumers of all manner of comics. The potential future for comics is insanely bright if we can navigate this moment of greed and darkness within the direct market. What will we do, and how will we be remembered? Those are your questions for today, and thank you. I do like the idea of the returnable comics to hopefully curb the amount of crap that hits the shelf. That would be kind of cool. And I hope he's right about the kids and being a bright future for comic books. That would be nice. Yeah, but this is the article that sparked off the whole, oh, Marvel's getting canceled. This and the fact that DC had made an announcement about their line of comics as well, which I'm going to cover in another Comic Geek News. So please stay tuned for that. So there you go, gang. What do you think about what he said about the whole state of the comic book industry? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to click like and share, subscribe, hit that notification bell if you haven't done it already, because that seems to be everything that YouTube cares about, if they care at all. And don't forget to click on one of the boxes if you like the video that are popping up right now to lead you to another one. And don't forget to go on over to Patreon or to Ko-Fi. Drop $1 in the till. Help us keep the lights on. Help us keep making videos for you. Thank everybody who's already done that. To everyone, all of the true believers, thank you very, very much for watching.